He's starting to feel like an old salamander. All right, so dam standard is definitely one, but I think that I'm starting to make the skin feel a little dry, right? It doesn't feel like a moist object. Moist, that word. All right. Let's thin out this little webbing in his mouth. Oh, thanks, Manuel. Appreciate the compliment. I'm going to go over to the standard brush to give these folds some volume. So now I'm going to go and do a second pass. And might want Z add-on. There we go. And let's go with a slightly harder edge on the brush. Bring up our focal shift, or bring down our focal shift rather. And part of what's making this feel like sort of like drier skin rather than a wet skin is the fact that these folds are so loose. In other words, they're not butt up next to each other. Like the skin should feel like it's swollen with water, right? Just like when you go in the swimming pool or you go swimming, well, it's mostly in a swimming pool, you're in the bathtub too long and your skin swells up with water, the cracks in between or your skin folds ends up getting closer together. Yeah, increasing gravity on the standard brush works too. That's under brush, and let's see, we're under ISO. Infrequently go and play with gravity, but there it is, inside of depth, right? Playing with this gravity strength and applying that. That's what Manuel's talking about. You can apply gravity to that brush and it has a nice little effect. So next I'm going to go over and do an inflate to bring these closer together. I want to make sure I'm not doing inflate in a broad way because it could really screw with my topology. So I'm doing this at a super high resolution because I'm going to step down to a lower resolution in a second. But let's blend these out first. And I'm kind of doing like a little demo area. I'm not completing out everything. But let me get a little bit broader area. Let's get at least the eyelids. And so that first carving pass is really just laying down the lines. Like, where is the flow? I'm going to mark it in. Smooth that down. And always, 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 it's the concept of graceful lines. Right? I'm trying to find those graceful lines. I may not always hit those graceful lines, but that's the ideal in my mind, that I'm trying to get graceful lines that flow into each other. All right, so now that I have this, I'm going to go back to carving. And when I'm on the center, I want to make sure that I turn off my symmetry. I'm going to do a little bit finer lines in here now. And I'm going to cross over my strokes. Probably safe to turn back on symmetry now. Let's hit this side first, then I'll turn on symmetry. And this is, you probably want to put this work into something that you're going to see close up in a game. You might not want to go in and do that sort of handwork on something that you might not be looking that close up at. But if you have the time, you have the time in your deadline, why not put in a little extra unless you need to pay attention somewhere else or something else is needing your attention. Alright, so I'm just going to come in really quickly and do this. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Jordu. I'm a big fan of Steve Wang, Casey Love, all those guys. I really admire their work and their work ideals. You know, their ideals inside of their work. I think that you know, those are some concepts that we should all strive for, no matter what we're sculpting. I said I was going to turn back on my symmetry and I totally forgot, so let's just hit this really fast and then I'm going to move forward because I want to get into Maya. So if I rush this a little bit, my apologies. Alright, I'm going to have to put this to sleep so we can move forward. Alright, so there's a little demo area for you guys for some skin folds. I'll go through, yeah, the time, the deadline, exactly. So I'm going to go through and do this over the weekend. I will do an undo history movie for you guys as I go through these skin details. At least you have an idea of where to go with it. I do want to do one thing that's a major part of this character. There was something I wanted to introduce from the moray eel. Oh, and by the way, what I was talking about, I said I was going to go down to a lower subdivision. I totally lied. So let me step down. And then the way that subdivisions work, this produces some really nice results. So I'm smoothing down at a lower subdivision. You step back up, and you can end up with something really nice. You know, you end up with some really nice lines just by using the standard brush, stepping down to a lower subdivision, then smoothing back, or then stepping back up. All right, so you can get some really nice stuff in there. All right, so the last thing I wanted to add in was in the neck, or in this wattle. I wanted to pull something from the moray eel, and that was really what drew me to it, was those these little skin folds coming down here. I want to drop that in. Are these beautiful wrinkles increasing your poly count? I am increasing my subdivision levels, but it's not going to increase my poly count when I go into Maya. What I'm hoping to do is to be able to hold this detail when I go into Maya in my maps, and that I don't have to create extremely large maps to hold it, and then it doesn't fall apart. You know, you can go in and you can go up to 80 million polys now inside of ZBrush. You could subdivide up one mesh to 80 million polys, but that doesn't mean that your map is going to hold all that detail. You know, you are going to have map restrictions, whether it's, you know, you can only use one 2048, or you can use two 2048s, or you can use only, you know, like one 4096. A 4096 map is going to hold a lot more detail than a 2048, right? And I don't know if you guys, how much experience you have with normal maps or deformation maps or height maps in general, but you know, it's all based off of how many pixels are in your map, right? I'm not sure how I feel about this guy. I think he's somewhere close to where I want him to be, but I think he still needs a lot of work on him. Alright, let's bleed this up into here, and let's do damn standard. Let's bring our lazy radius up so I get a nice latency and I can get some really smooth lines here. I like to call this my training wheels, the lazy increasing the lazy radius. It's like training wheels for, you know, a shaky hand. And right now I've had quite a bit of coffee, so I have a little bit of a shaky hand. In PS4 and Xbox, what is the poly count of a main character NPC and the size of the texture maps? That is which game? Which game? Because a platform like a platform fighter, where you only have two characters on the screen at any given time, or maybe four characters on the screen at any given time, is very different than say like a game similar to Skyrim, right? Where it's an open world and you may have 20 characters on the screen at the same time, which will that determines what the size of the size of your maps and the poly count. For sure, for sure. All right, let's go on to poly painting. I'm going to do a quick poly paint pass. I'm going to want to hit these feet. I'm going to want to go through a lot more of this, and I'll try and have. I should be able to finish this guy up tonight, so I can have those undo history movies for you. Try and have them posted by tomorrow. Although tomorrow at 1 o'clock, I will be doing a Google Hangout with some of the people from the beta team from 4R7. So I'll do my best to get that out for you tomorrow, or tonight before tomorrow. All right, so now let's go into poly painting. And you know what? He had this really soft, gentle nature in the front, and I kind of lost that by deepening all these cracks. Let's just bring some of that back. Just my intuition's like, make him not quite so mean. Step down one subdivision. Removing some of this puffiness in the eyes will help with that. And then let's step up. There we go. So we have some of that detail left in there, but I shaved down some of the volume to make them feel less kind of old and mean. I mean, he's something in an RPG that you would go over and slash up, but he's not some sort of evil character. He's a nooblodon. He's noob fodder.